So I'm Michael Hutchinson, and I'm going to be talking to Jake Hill today. Jake, tell me a little bit about where you are and who you work for.
So my name is Jake Hill. I'm the Chief Financial and Operating Officer for a Christian recovery program called Rob's Ranch. It's located in Purcell, Oklahoma, and we have a few locations, but the main location's in Purcell. We treat men in residential, and then we treat men and women in our outpatient program.
Very cool. So I wanted to connect with you today because I'd been talking to you about some of the things that I've been talking about on my YouTube channel is to do with personal growth, self-reflection, and body, spirit, and mind. And obviously, all of that I think tie quite heavily into addiction and recovery. Um, First of all, tell me what are the steps if somebody is struggling with an addiction, or if their loved one is struggling with addiction. What can they expect the steps to be um, if they reach out to Rob's Ranch?
So by the time that they're reaching out, either themselves or like a family member, a friend, something like that, then probably the person needing help has hit their rock bottom and they've asked for help, or the family or friends are doing some preliminary investigation because they know that it's coming. Maybe they're about to have an intervention, something like that. So usually it's the family that reaches out first. And we ask them a few basic questions. What they're using, are they interested in treatment, that kind of deal. But really, it boils down to we're going to have to talk to the client. We call them clients. We're going to have to talk to them ourselves. We have to see what their willingness is. Are they ready? Are they going to need detox? What are we looking at? Insurance, private pay. Do they need a scholarship? So once we talk to them, we kind of iron that out. A lot of times they're going to need to go to detox first. Then we work with some different programs, and we will connect them to those programs, and they're usually there for about 3 to 5 days, and then we will go and pick them up and bring them straight here.
Okay. So you mentioned detox. If the first step, if it's necessary that they have to go to detox, what does that really mean? What's the detox step in recovery?
So depending on what they're using, alcohol, drugs, whether it's opiates or methamphetamine, or really anything, most times they're going to need a medical stabilization. So all detox is you're going to need to go talk to a doctor and be in the hospital for a few days, and they're going to use different medications to help ease you out of really the withdrawal process. So, coming off of heroin, coming off of alcohol, it's dangerous, it's painful, it's difficult, and without the use of some helpful medication, it can really be a struggle for the patient or the client to make it through that. Plus, we want them to be stabilized. We don't want them to get here. Certain drugs, certain things like alcohol or benzodiazepines like Xanax. If they don't go through a detox process, then there's a pretty high chance that they could have seizures, some heart failure, things like that. So we want them to be medically stable because we want them to start on day one when they get here. We don't want them to be sick. We don't want them to have any medical issues. So we want them to be ready to go.
So what does day one look like?
Day one with us usually starts in my office. We go over some compliance, some legal, some financial stuff. We get that out of the way first. That usually takes about 10 or 15 minutes. Then we take the guys over to the room. We make sure they don't bring any contraband or anything like that in the facility. We give them and their families a tour of the place, show them around, let them get comfortable with the atmosphere about what's going on. After that, the family usually will leave, and the client will stay here and do a little bit more paperwork with our office manager, Linda Chapman, who will go into a little bit deeper dive into what they're using, what their history is, any allergies, any medications they're on, basically get a full workup on what's going on, and then get them into the system. That usually takes about 30 minutes to an hour. And then after that, they just start the program. Depending on what time of day it is, they may jump right into group. It may be dinner time, but they immediately start the program on the schedule.
Okay. So they fit into the schedule that's already established.
Yes, yeah. So it's a 90-day program typically. I mean, we do 30, 60, and 90, but the program is 90 days. So it doesn't really matter what time or what day they get here. They will be here for 90 days, and they'll get everything they need within that 90 days. It'll just reset after 90 days.
Okay. And so I mentioned kind of the elements of body, spirit, and mind. I wanted to talk to you about the spirit element because I've been to the facility and it's on a beautiful piece of land. There's the pond and there's the chapel. So we can say that in this instance, that spirit kind of aligns with faith. How does faith and that spiritual element really facilitate the recovery process?
So I like to explain it as a three-legged stool. So, you hear, body and mind, but sometimes you may forget the spirit. So it's kind of hard to sit on a two-legged stool with the body and the mind. You need that third leg to have a stable foundation.
Okay.
So we do body, mind, and spirit here. We have a chef works on getting you healthy, eating the right foods. We have a gym so you can work out. And we have the therapist that can work on the mind, and then we have a chaplain and we have a chapel service. We do church on Sundays, and it's a Christian program, so we do work on the spirit part of it. You have to believe in something greater than yourself to be able to get through this. If you could count on yourself, you wouldn't be at Rob's Ranch. You would have done it on your own. So we do want that spiritual aspect, and in our way, it's through Jesus. Now, that doesn't mean that Christianity is forced on anybody here. You're not required to go to chapel if you don't want to, but it is there and it is encouraged. And we've come to find that if you give the clients access to it without forcing them, then they tend to get curious and want to go, and they want to meet with the pastor. And then once you meet with our pastor, Brother Steve, it's over at that point. He's very good at what he does, and he's really good at understanding, and he has empathy. And so he gets it, and the guys really do trust him. And when a lot of guys get here, they don't have the greatest history with the church. They don't have the greatest history with religion, and they are skeptical, and we understand that.
Mm-hmm. So we talked about the schedule a little bit. So the spiritual element, or attending the chapel, or being in these groups, is that a daily thing? How does the schedule break down on a day?
Yeah, so some days are a little bit different than others, but basically the day starts at 6:45. Be up, be out of bed. Breakfast is at 7. They do a chapel service at 7:45, and then they are in a lecture at 8:30, and then they're done with that in about an hour. And then at 10 a.m., they're back in the chapel again for a book study on the purpose-driven life, which really kind of turns into a theology lesson. It gives the guys a chance to kind of ask questions. They just read some excerpts out of the book, and then really the conversation kind of takes off from there. At 11 o'clock, the guys go to a group, which would be them. We hold up to 40 guys here, so it could be 40 guys and 5 therapists, and they do a process group. And there's a lot of crying, a lot of hugging, and the guys kind of get that out. At noon, we go to lunch. At 1:15, they'll do a small group, which would be, so we have 5 therapists. Every therapist works with a maximum of 8 guys. So those 8 clients will go with their individual therapist. So it's like a big group with all 40 of them, just smaller. And so there's a little bit more personalization there. And then from 2:15 to 5, depending on the client's schedule, they may be doing process work with their therapist in a one-on-one setting. They may be doing some of their book studies on the big book. They may have free time. We have all the amenities you could want here. They may be playing volleyball. We have a pool. We have a pond. They can go fishing. There's a lot of stuff for them to do, so they have that free time to do it. And then at 5 o'clock, they have dinner. And then at 7 o'clock, an outside group, usually an AA or a church group, will come in, and they will do a meeting from 7 to 8. And then from 8 to 10:30, it's free time. And then lights out is at 11. And then they start it all over the next day. Sunday we do church, and then we do visitation as well. So on Sundays, the families can come out and they can visit with their loved ones. That starts immediately. So they can have visitation, the first week that they're there.
Something just came to mind, and you and I may have talked about this before. How does technology apply to any of this? Are they allowed to have their phone? Are they allowed to have devices while they're going through recovery?
No, no cell phones, no computers. It is, the modern era, so it's hard to get away from that completely. These guys, a lot of them are professionals. They have businesses, they have a life outside of here. And we understand that you go into treatment doesn't mean that everything just pauses and the world stops. They need access to their email sometimes. They need to be able to talk to their business partners, some of their customers. There's things they need to do. So we do have phones that they can use. We have a computer that they can also use. They can use their cell phones if they have a pass from their therapists, but usually it's for just a brief period of time. With the authentication today, you may need a cell phone to access a code to access your email. And so we get all that and try to work with them the best that we can. But in the general sense, we see devices as a distraction, and we want them to be focused on themselves. And it takes a little bit getting used to, but they make it.
Yeah. Well, and I imagine that in some circumstances, the devices are a continuous connection to things that they probably shouldn't be connected to while they're trying to go through recovery.
Absolutely. Yeah. People they shouldn't be in contact with are probably on those phones. And we want to keep everybody safe, not just the one client, but all the clients. So we do what we can to protect them.
Yeah. So when did you start working for Rob's Ranch?
I started in May of 2013.
Okay.
And they gave me a job to mow lawns.
Okay.
I had nothing else going on.
Yeah.
I couldn't go back to what I was doing before, and I had to start my life over completely. And I was very happy that they just gave me a job, so I was able to live at the facility and get paid and work. They found out pretty quick I wasn't very good at mowing lawns, and they moved me to house management, which means I get to watch over the guys and hang out with them while the therapist, the administration isn't here during the day. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I guess I annoyed them enough that they let me start a marketing department for them. So I did that for a couple of years, and then when the CFO retired, I got to take over his office, and I've been there since 2018.
Very good. So there's a lot of moving parts at the ranch. Then you mentioned that there's a chef. You mentioned some of the counselors. What kind of other roles are there to make all this run smoothly?
So we have, at our SARE program, we have a couple nurses. We have a nurse at our Purcell program. We have the house managers, like I mentioned before. We have maybe 5 or 6 of those, and they are here to be with the guys. They're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're always here. They live here on the property. So there's always somebody that's here. And we have everything, the administration side too. We have admissions department, we have billing, we have maintenance. There's everything else that you would need for any other business. But the big roles are going to be the therapists. They do a lot of the hard work. The rest of us just kind of support that role.
Give me a little bit of insight of the facility in terms of the buildings and the processes, because I remember seeing the gym when I came out there, and the pool, the basketball court. The chapel's separate. So what's kind of the rest of the infrastructure like?
So we sit on 70 acres. We have a dormitory that houses all 40 guys. We have 2 other houses that our staff lives in. We have an administration building. We call it the Great Room. It is a very large room that's got a fireplace. It has a very large television that they can watch all the games and hang out and play board games. And there's a library. We have another, we call it the old lecture hall. It's just another smaller room, has another TV in it that they can hang out and just relax and play games. We have a store so they can buy candy and pop and hats and shirts and all that stuff. And then we have a dining area where all the guys can eat together. We do have a lecture hall or a client center that they do all their groups in. It's where all the therapist offices are. And there's a game room down there too, where they have ping pong, foosball, a couple arcade machines, another TV room. And then there's a weight room down there to where they have access to treadmills and ellipticals and bikes and weight training equipment. And then on the other side of the property, we have a pond, a fishing pond, that they're actually in the process of making it about 5 times bigger right now. So that's getting built. And we'll stock that full of some fish, and the guys can fish whenever they like. Down there by the pond is a pavilion. And that pavilion is kind of a memorial to Robbie Liddell, and that's where the name Rob's Ranch comes from. So Robbie had passed in 2003 due to his addiction, and his dad built this facility really with just the intent of leading guys to Jesus and making sure that other families didn't go through what his family went through, having to bury a child. So there's a memorial down there that says who Robbie is and what he was about.
Okay. I also noticed that you have some animals on the property. Tell me a little bit about the animals and what the thought is behind that.
So we do have some longhorns and we have some alpacas. They're just good to look at. There's really no other reason for them. The longhorns are cool looking, and the alpacas, in my opinion, are very strange looking. I think they're pretty goofy and weird, and but the kids love them, and this is a ranch, so we have to have some animals. We have to have something. So yeah, we've got some animals that run around here, and cats and dogs and all sorts of other stuff.
Do any of the patients feed the animals, or is there anything scheduled like that they can do, or is it just by request? They're just like, oh, I'd like to do this.
It's not an official chore, but most of the guys do want to help out with the animals. They want to, they want to be around, the wilderness. They want to be around outside, and they want to work with the animals. And so, if they want to, they absolutely can. They can feed the longhorns and take care of the alpacas, and they can do all of that stuff that they like. We have a maintenance crew that heads up most of that, but they're always looking for help.
That's awesome. So you have told me, I think in the past, that many of the members of staff have their own personal experiences with addiction. Tell me a little bit about that and the thought process of that process. Yeah,
so at our Purcell facility, everybody that works here, from chef to maintenance to all the therapists to even our CEO, they're all in recovery, and they were all patients of this program. So I went through here in 2013. Our CEO went through in 2010. He was actually the first client to ever go through here. Everybody that's here has been down this road and not only experienced the addiction and the recovery part of it, but have also gone through the actual program where these guys are going. So there's one thing of knowing the book and how to treat, some addiction issues and having the degrees on the wall that tell you that you know stuff. That's great. But there is a huge other half to that of actually having experienced it yourself. There's a difference between empathy and sympathy. And our workers here and our employees, they have empathy. They know what these guys are going through because they've sat in that chair and they've slept in that bed and they've ate that food. They understand completely.
And they've been on the other side before they came into a facility like Rob's Ranch.
Yeah.
And the challenges that they had to get there.
They know what these guys have gone through. They know what it took to get here. And they also know what it's like, whenever you complete the program. And these guys that are in the program see that. And they see these guys that, have done their time in the program and are now, a year sober, 2 years sober, 5 years sober, 10. And they see that and they think, if that guy can do it, I can do it. Gives them some hope.
Yeah. So in 2013, you came into the program. How did faith or the spiritual aspect help you on your road to recovery?
So when I got here, I was one of those that was not very excited that it was a Christian facility. I was I was brought up in a pretty strict Christian home. Had to go to church on Sundays, church on Wednesdays. Had to participate in the church, and there was a forcefulness about that that I had to do all of these things. And most addicts, alcoholics, we don't like to be told what to do. But there's something about religion that's an extra button to push. So, which is why we don't mandate that for the guys that are here as part of it. I got here, wasn't excited, but I did go to chapel and I did go to the Purpose Driven Life book study, and I got to know Pastor Steve. And it was Pastor Steve who really kind of showed me that, there was a different way to live. And it was the first pastor in my life that was accessible to me, that I could visit with, that I could sit down with one-on-one, that I could ask questions. I never asked questions before because every time I did, I felt like they looked at me that I was stupid and, why would you even ask this? It's that way because I said so kind of thing. And Steve was the first one that said, well, what do you think? Well, read this passage of the Bible. What does that mean to you? So Steve and I had a lot of good conversations, and now he's one of my closest friends.
I used to encounter that in school a little bit with one of my math teachers, where she said, "There's no stupid question," and then you raise your hand and ask a question. She'd be like, "Why are you asking that?" And you'd be like, exactly. "Oh, you told me that I could ask any question."
Exactly. And if I just feel that if you are a part of a church, then your pastor should be approachable. You should be able to visit with him and be able to walk up and talk to him. That's what I feel. And I never had that until I had Steve.
Yeah. I think I've struggled a little bit myself with that in my life. I was raised in a Christian household and went to church. But my parents were open enough that they gave me the choice when I got to a point in my life, probably in my early teens, where they said, if you don't want to go, you don't have to go. And you can make up your mind as you go forth in life what you want to believe in. I think it's still probably a question in my mind, about my faith or spirituality or belief in God. One of the things I think that has bothered me about religion or church is often the judgment about it. Like, so I've met some people where they will vocally express that perhaps I'm not a good Christian because I don't do X, but I really believe in what Jesus stood for and the Christian ideals. And I feel like I live my life based on those, which is perhaps on par or above many people that do go to church on a regular basis. What's your thought on that? Is it, I feel like it's a life choice. It's a choice of how you want to conduct yourself with your fellow human beings.
And being a Christian is very personal. And there are so many different denominations and so many different ways, that you're quote unquote supposed to live. But really, the whole point of it is to live as Jesus did and try to do the things that he would do. The Bible doesn't say anything about a church is a building that you have to go to, that you have to participate in to be a good Christian. A church is the people. Mm-hmm. Church are the people that you surround yourself with and that you discuss the gospel with. And then, the way to be a good Christian, in my opinion, is to live a good life and to have others see you and wonder, that guy has something that I want. That guy's living a way that I want to live. How do I do that? And then the hope is that they talk to you about it. And of course, you can spread the word, just like we do here at the ranch. We talk about Jesus. You're not going to come here and not hear about it. And so we let them know that this is what worked for us and this is who saved us. And if you're interested in it, we'll talk to you about it. But I think being a good Christian is just treating others how you should treat them, how you want to be treated, how Jesus treated them. And I think people will see that, and actions speak louder than words. And those that go around, proselytizing and evangelizing and saying, do this, do that, and then behind closed doors, they're not living that way. That's what turned me away from Christianity. That was I saw the people at church that I went to church with, and I knew them outside of church, and they weren't living that way.
Yeah.
They weren't living the way that they portrayed themselves to be in church, and that really turned me off. And it took me a while to understand that, Christians are the ones that you see when nobody's paying attention, that are doing what's right, and that's what I wanted to be a part of. And when I came to Rob's Ranch, that's what I saw. I remember seeing we had a maintenance guy here, and I remember looking out the window, and he was walking, and nobody was around, and he was just picking up trash as he walked. And this wasn't one day; this was almost every day I would see him. And I finally just stopped and asked him one day. I said, why do you just walk around picking up trash?" And he said, "Well, this place saved my life, and I want to do what I can to get back to this place. And I lived my whole life in the wrong way, and now I want to live it the right way. And a small part of that is taking care of the place that I love." And that changed my perspective a little bit. That was the first time that this guy wasn't just telling me something, he was actually living it. And that made me pay a little bit closer attention to what was going on.
And so I think, based on what we both said, our experiences were guided by people and their bad leadership styles or their bad example. And then you meet the right people. So you were talking about the pastor there. You meet the right people, and it makes all the difference, because they give you a safe place to explore your own ideas and your own beliefs.
Yeah. And you don't want to shut everything down before you meet those people. That's the hard part is, you experience all the bad stuff for so long, and then you just shut down and you close off the rest of the world and never give it a chance again. And what I think people should know is that the world is not as horrible as, it's made out to be. Most of the world is pretty good. Most of the people are pretty decent human beings that want to help you and want to help their fellow man. And if you've had some bad experiences, in your earlier life, then, don't give up. Don't just shut everybody else out, because then you're going to shut out that one person that's going to change everything for you.
Yeah. I think your personal experiences are valuable, very valuable to what you're doing. And here's just a question I'm interested in. What would you say to somebody to encourage them when their mind chatter, sometimes I call it monkey mind, like sometimes it's the mind chatter that can really get you in trouble, where you have intrusive thoughts, doubts. I know that faith can definitely help with that, but what would you advise people to do when they're having a moment of doubt or a real struggle like that, especially on the path to sobriety?
So what I've experienced myself and what I've seen a lot of the time is, what happens is you get to a point, especially in addiction, to where you don't think that you're worth saving anymore. And you don't think that the family and the friends that are around you should be putting in any extra time to help you. They shouldn't save you. You're beyond saving. And that's the part that's not true. And if you don't reach out and lean on those people and ask for help, then, I haven't met a person yet that actually wanted to die or wanted to give up. They would say things out loud, but really, if they had a choice, they would want to be happy. They just don't know how. They've been miserable for so long that happiness seems so far away. And it's just the point. It's just the part of not giving up. And those people around you, those are the ones that are in their right minds. Those are the ones that see you for what you really are, and they see you as a person that's worth saving. And you can't give up on yourself. You just can't. And so whenever you're ready, you just have to reach out to those people. But I see that so often. You're worth saving. I mean, it's just that simple. It's just hard to see in the darkness sometimes.
So what's the advice to a family member then? We talked just very briefly, you mentioned about talking with families about maybe they're going to have an intervention. I mean, if the person's not ready, if they haven't reached that point, is an intervention going to be the right thing, or is it? It's not going to force them to do what's needed to be done, is it?
No. So some people get it in their minds that an intervention is the moment that that person is going to realize that the path that they're on is the wrong path, and that they are finally going to accept help, and they're going to reach out and they're going to say, yes, let's go. Let's go to treatment. Let's get me some help. Unfortunately, that's not what happens. The majority of the time, it's just you explaining to that person in an environment, that in a loving environment with somebody there who is kind of a mediator. And you're just there to let them know, hey, this is what we're willing to do for you. This is where we are as a family. We love you. We want you to be better. But if you're not going to accept this help, then these are the consequences. And those consequences are usually, you're not going to be a part of this family. You're not going to be at the family events. There's not going to be the communication that there was before. And that may sound harsh to some people, but you have to understand that those families can't live in the same misery forever. I'm a parent. I know that I would do anything and everything for my child. And I can sit here talking to another parent and tell them what they should do, but it's hard. And, where my mom got with me was, she said, I love you, but I don't like you. And I want you to be happy. But if you aren't going to make that decision to be happy, there's nothing I can do for you. So until you're ready to get some help and be happy, then I'm not going to have any communication with you. And it was probably 2 years whenever she told me that we just didn't have any communication. But when I was ready, I did. I reached out, and I was in treatment a few days later. So, the family needs to be prepared in those interventions. They need to understand that they need to tell the truth. They need to explain what the consequences are, and they have to stick to those consequences. If you say, I'm not going to pay your rent anymore, I'm not going to bail you out of jail, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, you need to stick to that. Because if you don't, then they're not going to ever trust that you mean what you say. And they've been able to probably manipulate you for a really long time and get what they wanted out of you. And they don't think that you're going to follow through with it. The second you follow through with it, everything gets real. And that's when the change comes. It may not be immediate, but that's how it starts.
That's happened in my own personal life as a father with my son as well, where I set particular boundaries with him, and then I had to enforce them, kind of the idea of tough love. And it was tough love. It really hurt me to do some things to stick to my boundaries. But I think
it's hard.
It's very hard. But I wanted to be the honest person in his life that meant what I said. Like I do what I mean to do in my life, and I mean what I say, and I need you to do the same. And now looking at our relationship, that was probably, let's see, he's 25 now. Especially when he was 18, we had a really hard time when he was 18. And we have a fantastic relationship now. We can goof around, we can be silly, but we know where we stand. It's super important with people, especially with leadership and with children, like with your children, for them to understand where you stand. I've always noticed when I was growing up, I noticed people are really smart, kids are really smart, and as they go into their adulthood, they take the tools of manipulation. Like they know who they can manipulate. Like I would watch my son go to school, and he worked out in the front office which person he could talk to if he just wanted to go home. He wasn't really feeling bad, but he would just work out who it was that he needed to have that conversation with. And then whether to talk to mom or whether to talk to dad, like who's going to say what. So yeah, we learn those things very young and carry them through our life. And if the family cannot stick by what they're saying they're going to do, then the cycle's just going to continue, I imagine.
Yeah, you don't want to, it sounds extreme, but the more that you enable them in addiction, the more that you bail them out, the more that you pay their bills, the more that you don't, encourage them to seek help, you're just killing them slowly. That's all that's happening. And I know, as a parent, you just want them, in those instances, you just want them to be alive. You just want them to survive and hopefully survive long enough that they get some help.
Yeah.
But if you don't start making the right decisions as the parent, and start setting those boundaries, then you are killing them. It is happening.
Yeah.
And that's a scary thing to do, because if you stop helping, then what happens?
Yeah.
Do they do something, dumb? Do they live long enough to get the help?
Yeah.
It's a difficult decision to make, but there is a guarantee that if you keep enabling, you're going to kill them.
Yeah. Yeah. That need to rescue when you love someone, thinking that rescuing them from the immediate circumstances is the solution or the right thing to do. When, at least for me, during as I matured as a person, I started to realize that looking internally, whatever happens in my life, looking internally and realizing that I'm the one that needs to make the decision, or I'm the one that needs to empower that action, instead of having a victim mentality, or instead of relying on other people to bail me out. It's the only way to grow. You have to stand on your own 2 feet.
Absolutely.
You mentioned the outpatient program as well. Tell me a little bit about the outpatient program, because that's not just for men; it's for men and women. Is that right?
Right. Correct. Yeah, it's for men and women. So we did it for two reasons. One, we wanted to be able to engage those that maybe weren't ready for the full commitment of residential care. So the care to where you go to a facility and you stay there, you sleep there, you live there for an extended period of time. That is a difficult idea to come to terms with. And sometimes people need a little help understanding what that is about and understanding what therapy is and what recovery is. So we have the outpatient program that gives them a little bit of a taste of what that's about and kind of what the expectation is, and maybe give them a little glimmer of hope. And the hope is that they won't ever need residential care, that they can do this while living their life and going to work, and they can make it. But if they don't, they know that at that point that we actually care and that we want to help them, and that there are, we can elevate this, we can move to the next level to help. The other part of it is we wanted to be able to give those that do residential care, whenever they get out, we wanted them to be able to have a continuum of care. So we wanted them to still be able to see a therapist, still visit with them, usually on a weekly basis, and continue the therapy that they received in residential. Because in residential, you're kind of just going over your history. You're trying to work through some trauma and some things that have already happened, some things that have already been experienced. When you leave the program, now you're in the present. Now you're dealing with life on life's terms, and you're trying to work through, your life, but now it's in recovery. So there are different challenges, different problems, different issues that arise, and having a therapist and somebody there that has access to your history and knows what you've already gone through gives you that continuum. It gives you the ability to visit with them and explain, this is what's going on today. This is what's happened with my wife. This is what happened with my husband. This is what's going on with my kids or my work. And because you're not going to have those issues usually when you're in residential, because you're not with those people every day and you're not going to work.
Yeah.
So the guys that and the girls that do the outpatient, their chances of continued success and recovery goes up about 30%. So, if residential care, it's about 50. Then they go into the outpatient program, do the aftercare program. Their chances of staying, sober is about 80 to 85%. So it increases dramatically. So we really encourage them to do that, so they never have to go back through residential again and never have to, have to go through that experience.
Is it possible in the foreseeable future that you will have a facility for women, a 30, 60, 90-day program for women as well?
We would love that. Absolutely, we would love that. Treatment is expensive. Facilities are expensive. It is one of those things that if we're going to do something, we're going to make sure that all of our ducks are in a row. We have the funding to do it, and we know that it's going to work. Rob's Ranch is never going to jump into anything hoping for the best. We're going to do everything in prayer and everything in preparation. And with the women's facility, there definitely are plans that have been drawn up, and budgets and facilities and all of those things. But it takes a lot to do it, and we're not going to do it until we know we can do it well. So if and when we can, we absolutely would like to.
Awesome. One more thing before we conclude. What would you say to corporate entities or human resource departments to be a resource to them when they're encountering problems with employees and addiction?
That it's as easy as picking up the phone and calling us. You don't have to go through, a 1-800 number and a million different people and hitting 1 and 2 and 3 and making it through, all the different levels through a phone call. If you just call us, a human person will answer the phone and we'll walk you through the process. We work with all the major carriers, so we can work with the insurance, and our private pay rate is a lot less than what you're going to find nationally. We have a history of working with professionals, from attorneys to business owners, doctors, pilots. We can do all of those things, and we can get them prepared to go back to work. Those corporations, they put a lot of money and time into these people, and these people have put a lot of their time into those corporations, and the last thing we want to do is for them to lose their job because of a mental health issue, because that's what addiction is. It's a mental health issue. And so give these people aren't bad people. Give these people a chance. Let them get the care that they need. If they had cancer, they would go and get their treatment, and they'd be able to come back to work. They need to be given the same ability to do that when it comes to addiction, and that there isn't a taboo, behind this. People just need help, and let's not waste your resources, having to fire somebody or lose somebody and then having to get somebody else and train them up to do a job that you hope they do as good of a job. Why can't we just help that one person and get them back to work for the sake of the company and that person and their family?
Because addiction's indiscriminate, so it could be your best employees, it could be anybody.
It absolutely could. There's no doubt about it. And there's some statistics out there for how much it costs to train, especially for higher administration, upper management executives, how much companies actually put in and how much money is spent. And it's millions. It's a lot of money that's invested into these people. Mm-hmm. And do you want to just say, throw that out the door? If you want to look at it as a money standard, then, you probably want to reinvest in these people and get them back to work.
Yeah. So it's an investment for them and for the company, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for your time today. Before we go, I just wanted to touch a little bit on directing design and my relationship with Rob's Ranch. So tell me a little bit about your experience with directing design and some of the things that you're glad that we take off your plate.
So I can tell you, I don't know. How long have we been with you guys now? Do you know?
8, 9, 10 years. I'd have to look it up. It's
been a while.
Yeah. So
like I kind of said previously, so I started the marketing department at Rob's Ranch, and that was probably 2014, 2015, something like that.
Okay.
And we probably went through 3, 4, 5 different marketing, SEO, web design companies. And I had the worst experiences with all of them. I could never get anything done. I could send an email, nothing would happen. There'd be no engagement. There'd be no follow-up. There'd be no, this is what's working. This is what's not working. It got to the point to where we were thinking of just doing it all in-house, but that gets expensive. And if you don't hire the right people and know what you're doing, then it's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. And I remember we had a guy here, and he had come across, I don't know where he came across you guys. Maybe it was through Google. I can't remember. And he said, let's just try that. And I remember reaching out, and initially, I remember thinking, well, what I remember thinking is, okay, well, he's British, so there's a difference there. I remember thinking that. But honestly, right out the gate, I wasn't thinking this is completely different than anything I've experienced before. And I think that had a lot to do with there was just a bad taste in my mouth. I had been promised so many things from so many different companies before, and nobody ever delivered. Nobody ever delivered anything. Oh, did I lose you? Oh, there you are. So nobody had ever delivered on what they promised us. And so I was skeptical, but I remember getting, and it sounds kind of dumb, but I remember getting those monthly reports. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking, okay, so they are doing something. And then you guys redid the website. And I remember thinking that looked awesome. And there were some updates, and there were, especially during the website, there was a lot of things that we were changing as we were going. And I would see something, I'd email you, but I'd get a response back. I mean, almost immediately, and it would be fixed almost immediately. And that's really when I thought, I think Michael actually cares about what is going on, and it feels like he wants us to succeed. And I mean, Michael, whenever we met you, we had one facility,
Yeah.
and I think an average of about 18 to 22 people in there. And now we have three facilities and four programs, and we have about 180 clients. so, so there's a pretty good increase in what we've been able to do, and how many people we've been able to engage with, and how many lives we've been able to touch. And it has a lot to do with you getting out there and doing what nobody could do before, and getting us in front of the right people. And whether that's with Facebook or SEO or any social media, I mean, you did what you said you were going to do, and been with you ever since.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you. Although I have a confession, you did send me 2 tutorial videos and I haven't uploaded them yet. But I will. I will.
That's okay. That's okay. So all I know is that I can call you and you answer. I can email you and you respond. And it sounds so simple, but man, nobody else was doing it.
Yeah. I do. So there's always circumstances where you can't respond immediately, but I think that our response rate is pretty good. And like you said,
Very good.
it's usually a couple of hours, if not at least the next day.
Oh yeah, there's never been. I don't think you've ever not responded. I don't respond to you sometimes,
That's right. The ball's in your court. Then I'm like, I'm good. The ball's in his court.
but you've always been respectful, and I can feel that you align with our mission, and I can feel that you care about how well we do, and that is important to us. We're not a big conglomerate. We're not a big corporation. We're basically a family-owned business, and I feel like you treat us as the same as you would with any of the multi-million dollar accounts or multi-billion dollar businesses that are out there. I feel like we get the same level of personal attention, and we appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you too. I've really enjoyed being part of helping you with the mission. And going forward, we'll continue to enjoy our relationship. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to conclude this. I want to thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure. And when I've done the editing afterwards and I have everything ready and uploaded, I'll share it with you.
Perfect. Thanks,
All right.
Michael.
Thanks, Jake. Have a good day.